Oh no, don't worry. You're good. That's have to go down.
Make sure you get your coconut.
Oh yeah, don't worry. All right. He's Mars. Yeah. What book? It's it should be over there somewhere. Oh. For new people, you could hold your peace for now. Everybody else, if we could rise and do our prayer. Face the east. Father on the left, two on the right. Allah, Father of the universe. Allah, Father of the universe. Father of love. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah, my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Ashe. Our letters to be read every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found thee. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asians must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Ali, Islam. Yo, you know, was that thing beeping before? So, since we were here this morning? Was that, you heard that thing beeping?
Yeah.
It was beeping? Yeah?
Something battery for some reason.
It's the light.
It's a square battery.
Yeah, I don't know. Unless I was missing that. I wasn't hearing that. Well, welcome to the Moorish Science Temple. Just for people who need something to eat, we have 5 principles cuisines, whose our food wing of what we do here. They cater for us sandwiches every week for our classes. So the yellow one is nugget, chickpea, and BLT. Everything is vegan, and you can get that in the back. You just talk to Brother Omar. There's also drinks in the cooler for sale as well. And Sis gave she brought some coconut drops, coconut cake. Is there any price on those, or okay? Yeah, so there's coconut cake back there. You know, free up yourself. You see that there's some new people, so we want to open the floor if you have any questions.
I thought you wanted to read this.
Oh yeah.
See now why?
What's the that's why we got Mufti in the back.
Let me see why.
What chapter was it again?
31. Inconstancy of man. And just before when we were having this discussion, and this is one of the things that I want to start maybe doing, having certain weekly, bi-weekly meetings in regards to, and I think some of us have talked to this before, in regards to creating some literature for relationships, about how families need to sort of be run, about how we need to start keeping our community together. We don't do enough talking about that, about bringing mom, sister, and the wife back to that proper place. If we're really serious about getting this done, that's what it's going to take. What I realize is they do a lot of talk about that, but really behind the scenes, they're still undermining the woman. The woman really has been relegated to being a slave in all sort of facets. And she, she's the creator. She's the goddess of everything. She is it. But rather than making them the subject, they made them the object. Right? They're both subject and object in the same moment, but they've objectified them rather than giving them the real honor, which is they're the subject. Because we all are feminine from that femininity, because we come from femininity. So we were talking about the fact that sin. We saw sin. They said that you were born into sin, and sin being like, they were saying that that's the first sin, you being born into sin. But there are some other schools of thought that say sin are basically the sort of issues that your parents have that get passed on to you. So that, let's say your parent was an abuser, you might be an abuser. So that would be the sin. The sin would really be the ignorance, right? The ignorance of the situation, the fact that you haven't solved that issue. And today, I read a passage, when I read passages from the Quran, and I find that sometimes you'll pick up, sometimes you read something and it's very much absolutely in point with what you're going through at that time of life. There'd be no way that you would know that. You just pick up a book and start reading something that's absolutely connected with what you're going through. So this is the full instructions from the prophet, inconstancy of man. So this is, should I read the whole chapter or should I just read the part? Just the part?
Yeah.
Okay, so the part is, it's section 7. That says, okay, so I'm going to go from section 6 so we can get, or from 5.
How long is it? You're not going to read it. Is it
well, I mean, you can go to 5 because it's just in reference to 1.
Read one to wherever you're.
Okay, so 1. So, holy instructions from the prophet, inconstancy. Nature urges me to inconstancy, O man. Therefore, guard thyself at all times against it. Thou art from the womb of thy mother, various and wavering. From the loins of thy father, inheritest thou instability. So that's connected to me with exactly what I was talking about. Right? That you're really inheriting this stuff from your family. Right?
What was it from father?
Inheritest thou instability. How then shalt thou be firm? 2. Those who gave thee a body furnished it with weakness. That was the lower self. But he also gave thee a soul, armed thee with resolution. Employ it, and thou art wise. Be wise, and thou art happy. Let him who doth well beware how he boasts of it. For rarely is it of his own will. And I think about all the things that go on in my life. You think about how you're not really designing anything. You're sort of being carried along something. Anyways. 5. Is not the event of an impulse and without born of uncertainty, first enforced by accident, dependent on someone else. To thee and to accident is due the praise. Beware of this, and then verse 6, beware of irresolution in the intent of thy actions. Beware of instability in the execution. So shalt thou triumph over two great failings of thy nature. What reproacheth reason more than to act contrarieties? What can suppress the tendencies to these but firmness of mind? The inconstant feeleth that he changeth, but he knoweth not why. He seeth that he escapeth from himself, but he perceiveth not how. Be thou incapable of change in that which is right, and men will rely upon thee. Establish unto thyself principles of action, and see that thou ever act according to them. So shall thy passions have no rule over thee. So shall thy constancy ensure unto thee the good that thou possesseth, and drive from thy door misfortune, anxiety, and disappointment shall be strangers to thy gates. So that to me, in terms of what I've been going through the last little bit, really showed me that when I get up and do all the things that I know are right. PRS had a point. He says, you have to keep doing the things that make you successful. Continue to make yourself successful. Why would you be doing shit that's successful and then stop doing that stuff? So anyways, that was where that was from all of that part. Right. And then that sort of to deal with the sins that you're going through that you inherit from your family, and understand that you're born with certain instabilities. Let's say my father was a drinker. Right. I gotta make sure not to drink. Right. And that keeps me firm, and that's going to drive misfortune from my gates.
No, just for some of the new people, where were you reading from? And what's your perspective of that book?
The Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. I think what I've understood this to be is this was, to me, knowledge. We talk about the Akashic records and the knowing of everything and all that is true and good. I think they talk about the fact that none of that can be probably encompassed in one being. So what happens is through the different religions, they've split up that oneness into all these slices. So this was the Holy Quran, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, created by Noble Jorali. So he culled together all these different works and put them into this one book as one of the templates, one of this and the 101s to being the two books that are absolutely fundamental in your sort of saving yourself. So to me, this is everything. I find that there will always, and today I was really struggling, and I opened it, and that was the chapter. So I know that right now, at that moment, that I was in the moment, present, with being instructed with what I needed to do.
Lock the other leg. Yeah.
Is that thing going off? You know what it is, go back, I think? Go down and check the switch. That's what it is. Go down and check the breaker box. Because that's why it's going off, because the power's been cut somewhere. And it's cheap and it's chirping because it's on battery. Trust me. I'm gonna do it before. Just go check first. So yeah, so to me, and what I found is when I follow this, and it's hard. It's like, the Bible, they give you 600 pages. This is 57 of them. I think that he tailored this and designed this because he knew that a lot of the stuff in the so-called Bible is a lot of the correctness too, but it's full of a lot of other stuff. So he made it sort of simple. So this to me is key, and it is actually one of the building blocks of sort of the reclamation of your nationality. With us here.
Right. Anybody else out here? Yeah.
For me, the Holy Quran is basically, like you said, it's our version of it's our holy book. But back in 1913 to say 1929, our people were kind of fresh on slavery. So a lot of people were saying, well, Jesus is in the Bible. I mean, the story of Jesus is in right? But if people understand that, because we just came out of slavery, our mindset was still based in Christianity based. And basically, because imagine somebody telling you about, now, even right now, but you tell Christians that
Was there a breaker that had tripped?
No, one looked like it, but it was still pretty firm, so I don't think so.
All right, so what were you saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, well, basically, I'm saying that.
Oh, you're saying that they connected that, they brought that to us?
Yeah, I think the prophet purposely put.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He created this out of those many things to be able to attract all
Everybody.
Because the Bible basically talks about the life of Jesus. But, I mean, the life of when he got crucified and risen. And but in the Quran, it talks about his missing years, like from he's born to 33. What happened to those times? So that's what the Quran basically is filling in what the Bible didn't fill in.
Well, and I also think from a perspective that it was done because the so-called King James Version of the Holy Bible, was done for conversion reasons so that it could back his stuff up. And they obviously left stuff out for that specific reason. So he gave you the stuff that they weren't giving you because that was really the stuff.
Plus, also, remember, people was fresh out of Christianity, which, I mean, fresh out of slavery. And Christianity was the main thing that was driving force to keep them submissive.
Of course.
So basically, they all knew about Jesus, so he gave them something that they could relate to.
Yeah, he gave them,
because they all know Jesus didn't exist as the word Jesus. That's a fraud. We all know that. But he gave to the people so they could relate to something that they're familiar with to kind of bring them back to something to the truth. Right? And I mean, I've heard people the Quran and like, oh, Jesus is in there. Oh, we don't believe it's not real. I'm like, if you overstand it, right, it doesn't apply to the person, the character. It applies to the like the whole process of justice, because we know like Jesus really means justice in one question here. Basically, if you want to get justice, you basically have to be like how Jesus was, because Jesus said that you could be just as great as me, or even more.
Even more. Yeah.
So, plus also the Quran, it breaks down family, like you said, it breaks down basically every aspect of life that we're going to get challenged with at some point, at some time of our journey as a spirit man, because we're just in the flesh, and we are really the spirit in the flesh here to experience our lessons. So, you know, for whatever our journey is, or our path, to find our path. So that's my aspect on it.
Right. And as well for the new people, the timeline that we're working with right now is 1913, 14, 15 to about 1929. Right. So when you hear, or if you've heard Morris talk and you hear you know, Allah and Prophet and Quran and all these things, that immediately go in your mind that it's something religious. That's not really where this is going, because like Brother Omar said, there's a deeper thing being relayed, and once we can get into what really the messages that we're supposed to get, then we will be able to see the outcome, because we've been so accustomed to getting half truths that we become comfortable not dealing with the realities, not realizing that dealing with the realities is really where, you know, facing those fears, facing those demons, facing those things you don't want to deal with is really how you're going to get to the next level. Yeah.
I'm going to also say that I think the other part of all of this is that this is always a journey of self-realization. What they've done is they told you what you are, or who you are, or what you could be, and not allowed you latitude to explore those things. And that's the other part to it. They sort of, I call it arrested development. You know, you get to that first level, you get to sort of the universe, and you've been enslaved in work. Rather than at that point, you should be taking off into the stars. So I also see that's the other part to it, which is sort of that part of arresting that development. And then the real development coming when you finally pass this form. And that's done in this sort of in this sort of length of time when you're sort of meant to learn these realizations all through it. But I think that, I mean, they talk about this, the ability to pass into those other realms while you're still here in this form. That's the part to it that all of us should be getting to, ascending to that prophet level. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what was said in the book.
Exactly.
Man, you're here to do more than I did. So if Jesus saved the world, then
What are you supposed to do? Exactly. And with knowing that that's the hat to wear, how many people are going to wear the hat? Knowing that, yeah, sacrifice is probably going to have to be made in order for us to reach deific life for real, for real. Peace, man. Yeah, man, go ahead.
So the other thing as well, I'm going to drop it here. So we were at the Masonic Temple last couple of days. We're working in an industry where we get access to that. And so if anyone knows about masonry, how that connects with us and how it connects with the world, there's certain degrees in masonry. And I knew there was something that attracted me to masonry before I knew what masonry really meant. And I know when I talked to some masons, the look that they shared between them, in my mind, was the look that they were acknowledging that possibly the reason why you'll have an affinity towards something in the present and you don't know why, called a deja vu, because in another life, that's what you did. You've already experienced that. You were already doing that. And that's just sort of your past life coming back and sort of giving you one of those, wow, I was here doing that. Or having a familiarity towards something. A talent probably is the fact that many generations ago, you were that. So one of the levels that I think that they were talking about, which I think some of us, if you've done any of that studying, talking about passing beyond the plane of life. When you sort of die and then come back to life, that was the resurrection. And the resurrection was that ability to sort of pass on into the realm beyond the sun, which is what everything revolves around right now. And passing on to that, that's the realm of the soul. And we've got other words. So but the masters were able to do that while still here on the form. Whereas the rest of the mundane people, they basically had to die to this world to then move on to the next one. So that's where I see some of the skills that we should have. That's what all of us should have. And that's the stuff that was lost, has been lost to us.
But in the prophet saying that like the kingdom of God or so-called kingdom of God is the realization of your nationality, something like that. I can't remember.
No, you're exactly right. You say that you have the realization that kingdom of heaven,
yeah, the kingdom of heaven, or your salvation or something.
Salvation
I can't remember the word for word, but he said that your salvation or the kingdom of heaven that these people in church is really knowing who you really are. That's right. Because that's just going to save them. Is to know that you're not property, you're not a brand, you're not anything that is not really you, which is a spirit man first, and then the last thing that you were before we fell was more. So to get back to the column, we have to go back to the last name that we were when we were new. We had many names because we've been on this planet for billions of years. Not just like the modern European have been here maybe 8,000 years, like from their submission. Right? We've been here since, I guess, Earth formed. Exactly. Who knows how long?
Right.
But science say they found stuff billions of years ago that says that civilization is here. So that's how old we are. We have many names, but like I said, the last name that we had as an empire, we're wars, and that's when we ruled. And then when we get back to ruling, we have to be what we were. And the prophet said, without a doubt or contradiction, we are what our forefathers are, our foremothers are. And nobody can tell us anything that we're this or that. No, we are what we were. And we still is today. It doesn't matter if it was 400 years ago, like they say, or whatever years.
Yeah.
Those are still our ancestors. Their DNA is still in our blood. And and if we just channel them, we could actually, my belief is that they come back through us. Right? So that's why certain wars are on different levels, because maybe
certain ancestors,
that war that's in you now, that's just in you. He was on a higher level, doing some magnificent stuff.
Islam, yeah, feel free to pull out some chairs over there. The comfy ones are done. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, especially new people? Any got questions?
My question is the noble Israeli and what he teaches versus that of the nation of Islam and Islam in itself. What's the difference?
So, with regard to Noble Drew Ali and Nation of Islam, the founders of the Nation of Islam started doing what they were doing in 1930. 30 is their timeline of starting, right? Prior to that, what were they doing? Oh yeah, you could just put some back there. So you got the fro going on now. It's been a while. Yeah, so 1930 is when they had their startup. Prior to 1930, majority of people that were dealing with any type of for black people or whatever, they were either in the UNIA, they were either in the NAACP, they were either in some type of Muslim movement, right? They have a group called the Ahmadiyya movement that were Pakistanis that came over here, started doing things for our people to be able to find themselves, or they were just the average individual who's trying to find an avenue to know more about themselves. So in 1929, Noble Drew Ali got assassinated. Not only did Nation of Islam come up in 1930, but a lot of these other so-called church organizations and Hebraic, different branches of Christianity, black Christians, quote-unquote Freemasonry for quote-unquote blacks and all that stuff. All that is coming from that time frame going forward to where we are today. And when we do our research on many of these different organizations, all of them go back to 1930, 1929. So now once we eliminate all the ones that started in 1930, whatever's left was what it was. So we're talking about, as far as for our people and the upliftment, we're talking about the UNIA and the Moorish movement. Like there wasn't anybody else that was really for the upliftment of our people as a whole people, as far as the quote unquote diaspora or whatever. Right? The connection that what you would say societal Islam has to this is that the original quote-unquote Muslims were really mystics of Islam. They weren't Islam like how you see people around today saying that they're Islamic. The people who said they were Islamic in ancient times, or even if we don't say ancient times, even if we say 1400s, 1300s, going back, those people weren't just go to the mosque and go pray and that's what it meant to be Muslim to them. You know, they were alchemists, they were high priests, they were you know, librarians, and they weren't just people who were just locked in this, you know, this is a religion, and that's what this is. It transcended many different ways of existence, experience, or whatever, you know. So with us, we're going back to what our ancient foremothers and forefathers had laid down, not just what they call themselves, but we're also going back to how they thought. How would our ancient foremothers and forefathers look at solving black on black crime? Not these people around here who are here today, who think they got some brilliant idea of how to do it. Because if we go back to that mindset where that thing didn't exist in our ancient forefathers, maybe we'll solve it. If we go back to the mindset of our ancient foremothers and forefathers where diabetes in our community didn't exist, eliminate that tomorrow. If we go back to the mindset of, you know, children come out of the womb and they're careful. You don't have to go through whatever it is these people out here call school or whatever like that. They have trannies coming to school to teach children about stuff. Saying that that's about teaching children about, you know, certain things would not be happening because we're going back to the mind state of a time when those things weren't even an issue, especially among our people. And if those things were an issue, we weren't the ones that were having those issues, because we weren't the ones that would say, you know, we're the minority. We would have been the superior people. And most of the time, you don't see people in superior positions having certain issues like what inner city and poor communities or whatever have. You know, and if they are having those issues, it's tight-lipped. They don't talk about it. They keep their business at home. They don't go on Snapchat with their business. Right?
So it's a way of life then.
Way of life, more so than something religious, if you will. You know, and the other connection to this, because somebody in the chat asked a question about how come so many Moors who are saying that they're indigenous don't say that they're Moors too. They just stop at indigenous or Aboriginal. And then that would be the way that they talk. And if Moors come up, they'll say, oh, well, we never called ourselves that or whatever. We always called ourselves by our tribal name, Cherokee, whatever going down the line. So what I wanted to read from for that, just to, this is the other aspect of your question that you didn't ask, was also what's the connection of Moors to Aboriginal Indigenous, which brings in a whole different perspective now, because we're also going to be tying Islam to that. Not that Islam is something from across the Atlantic, that there was Islam over here with indigenous people over here, not just over there, right? This is from, in 2011, we had our first Noble Drew Ali Day. And we're gonna have these, we're gonna have this available. This is gonna be a reprint. But the handout that we gave out, or the presentation for the first Noble Drew Ali Day, was letters that we got from all the different Moors that we would have considered our teachers or people that we were affiliated with. They wrote us letters and we put all the letters in a booklet so that we can have it to do this, you know, this, you know, 7 years later. You know, how were people looking at us back then, and where have we gone? How have we manifested? So one of the letters was from Brother Ali Melbay. You can go to dralimelbay.com. That's his website. And we're just gonna read part of his letter. Since he comes from the we are Aboriginal and Indigenous perspective, and he's an LBA, which means that he adopts, accepts, and lives by the Moorish science or people who call themselves Moors. We'll see what he has to say with regard to Noble Drew Ali and all that. Timothy Drew was born on January 8, 1886, to John Drew Whitman, a full-blooded Cherokee, and Eliza Turner, pure-blooded Tunica, Washita. Eliza Turner was part of the landmark case Heirs of Turner versus the U.S., in which the U.S. lost 68,800 acres of land, and it was returned to the family, proving that the Washita proper, misnomer Louisiana proper, was never purchased by Thomas Jefferson and sold to Napoleon Bonaparte. The Louisiana Purchase, purportedly all the land from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains purchased by President Thomas Jefferson in 1803 from France, has been proven by research of original treaty and land grant documents to be nothing more than the Bourbon Street and a few military barracks, but does not include any land north of the Red River. Thus, Napoleon actually sold only the streets, as in Bourbon Street, etc., of New Orleans and the military barracks, and Thomas Jefferson actually purchased the arsenal at New Orleans and a small amount of land outside the city limits. But within the province where the city lies, the price agreed on was $15 million, of which $11 million was to be paid outright by the U.S. to France. The balance of $3 million was to be paid by the U.S. to its citizens to satisfy their claims against France. Within the Louisiana Purchase, Napoleon included a stipulation under Article 3. The payment of the Louisiana Purchase never arrived in France because the ship was sank off the coast of Florida. Officially, the wreck was never salvaged. Therefore, Napoleon was never officially paid. The massive land grab was not a part of the original contract between Jefferson and Napoleon. Spain never transferred those lands to the French when they used them for debt payments they owed. France never actually possessed them to sell, and Napoleon knew this when he contracted with Jefferson for the Louisiana Purchase. Therefore, the Western expansion was all predicated under the ideology of war. The corporate U.S. illegally stole the remainder of the land that belonged to the indigenous people of the region and committed genocide against the Washita by poisoning their water. The Empress, the heir of the 1795 Spanish land grant Maison Rouge, Her Highness Empress Verdiachi Tiara Tunica Gaston Albay, and or the Washita, hold the title to the area west of the Appalachian Mountains. This land has never been a part of the United States of America. It is the same land that Abraham Lincoln spoke of returning to the Moors after slavery. Yes, he called it Egypt of the West and or Central America, the land between the Rockies and the Allegheny Mountains, from the Gulf of Mexico up into Canada and on both sides of the Mississippi. The Louisiana Purchase consists of what states? Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Minnesota, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Utah, New Mexico, Florida, etc. It is only through de facto government colorable law of eminent domain, which is the power to take private property for public use by a state, municipality, or private person or corporation authorized to exercise functions of public character. The Washita and Tunica families carry the imperial bloodline. After the U.S. came into our land, these names were altered to Washington and Turner. They also changed the spelling of Washita to Washita, O-U-A-C-H-I-T-A, a European misnomer that retained the pronunciation of the original name. Holy Prophet Drew Ali traveled to Egypt, where he was initiated into the lesser and greater mystery systems of the Great Pyramids. The Holy Prophet Drew Ali brought back with him Moorish science, the old-time religion called Islamism or Sufism, which was the remnant culture of the so-called ancient Egyptian mystery school. He rose from Egypt to make his required pilgrimage to Mecca, where his name was changed to Sharif Abdul Ali, a given and given the title of sheikh. This Eastern attribute translates in English to Noble Drew Ali. He also traveled to Morocco, where he studied Islam under some of the top imams of North America. It is believed that the imams commissioned Sharif Abdul Ali to come back to North America and teach the Moor descendants the true religion of Islam. This, he kept the family name Drew to remind his people of their quest to freedom. Holy Prophet Drew Ali was heir of the land, the 5th prince of the Marquis or royal regent of the Tunica, Washita, and in 1928 at the Pan American Conference in Havana, Cuba, Secretary of State Hughes went down to represent the United States, and Noble Drew Ali went down to represent the Moors. At that conference, the mandate for the landmass of Greater Amexem, North-South Central America, misnomered North-South Central Americas, was returned to the Moors. The Empress has the title of nobility because she is the rightful reigning royal family head of this ancient nation. She fully supports self-rule and a sovereign nation run completely by the people for the people, a concept that the ruling body of the USA has obviously long forgotten. The United Nations and World Court have long-standing laws not permitting foreign governments on sovereign indigenous land. Therefore, the Empress is calling for all U.S. federal agencies and U.S. federal statutes and laws to acknowledge our ancient lands and the diplomatic immunity of every Washita sovereign. Her aim is to make available to all people on this sovereign land the opportunity to live without any obligation of paying property taxes, federal taxes, mortgages, income taxes, state taxes, social security taxes, and without using tax identification numbers, but taking responsibility for governing themselves under the laws of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Her objective is that the nations of the world, including the corporate United States of America, recognize our sovereign immunity from U.S. laws and statutes and enforce respect for Washita, whether they might travel across this planet, wherever they might travel across this planet. Our task remains to educate both Washita sovereigns and citizens of the world to our ancient heritage and our indigenous presence on the face of this good earth. From Asaru Alim El Bey.
Islam.
Right? So the other tie that we want to make is not that just, well, the religious perspective, but there's also the Aboriginal indigenous perspective as well, right? And that is what gives us the full capacity to do whatever it is where we're at, because the theme is that Moors are from North Africa. But if we as Moors know that, well, Africa is also over here, that's why there's Egypt here and Memphis here and all these quote unquote African names over here, then over here must be Africa too. And if over here is Africa too, and you check the geography, you'll realize that in the North Americas, there's many people there that you would consider Moors, because they're dark skinned as well. Yeah,
That's why I also want to add that if you have a South Africa, you have a North Africa, then you have to have a West Africa, which is over here, and you have to have an East Africa, that's so-called East, right?
Yeah.
So basically, how people going to just go with the concept of South Africa as North Africa? What about the West and the East? You can't have two, what do you want to call it, directions without the fourth. I mean, it's 4 directions.
Right. Well, you can't have Middle East without
Exactly.
all the other
Exactly.
stuff being Middle
So,
East. Right.
Northwest Africa is the Americas.
Right. Right. And again, too, with the whole Aboriginal indigenous perspective, it's amazing how our people would accept that the concept of Pangea, or the world being one landmass, but they wouldn't say they're indigenous here. They keep talking about Africa. Like they always disconnect themselves from being tied here. And again, that has to go again with the whole European psychology of our people accepting things that aren't them, which pushes themselves further away from their own stuff. Which is why it's so hard for us to get our people back to where they're supposed to be, and why we just have open forum that let people who are vibrating on this frequency be magnetized to this. We're not gonna throw something out and hopefully catch people, right? Please, more.
Like, for us here to Canaanland, but we did massive business measures as Canada. It's another story to know what really Canada is and where it is. So in other words, we all people here now, we are not in Canada, we're not a part of Canada. Connect to my brothers and sisters, they don't understand the kingdom. Okay. But yesterday we went to Winner's Store to purchase stuff. Because my mom passed and we're going home next. She was honest and she was there with the street and she knows us. Well, we go to the store and they're having problem of doing our not tax. It was a while and they get managing, she's trying. And finally she got it. You know what she referred to us as? It's on my receipt. Foreign diplomats. Foreign diplomats means we're not a part of Canada. They know that, but we're not.
Right.
And after she did all of that, and it take her so long, she turned around and she gave me a $10 gift card. Apologies like crazy. So, whatever it takes for our people to wake up, I don't know. But this is it. This is winners. This is winners, and this is what they did, and it's marked there on the receipt.
I dealt with winners before, and what they do is they only have, like, they don't take the AA number.
They take it. It's on my receipt. It's on my receipt right now.
Well,
But it's a process, right?
there's a process. What they do is they have a button where they say it's for Native Indians, and they just press that button, and then basically that's what they usually do.
Yeah, because that happened. I said I don't know. Because that one tax is still there.
Yeah.
She go back.
Right.
So what the American has come to, she's come override it, the third access, and then she can process, but only the manager can do it. But that's the issue.
That was the manager. The manager, she's the one that gave me
No,
this.
I'm saying only the manager would override or have the access to
And what we're realizing too, because Brother Kobena and I had the same situation with was it Lowe's? With Lowe's, that we went to one Lowe's and then we did the no tax was no issue. They went to another Lowe's and they were like, well, how are you gonna do it? We're like, well, we got a receipt right here saying that whatever. So with regard to what you're talking about, that even though the name says the same name, it's different ownership.
Yeah.
Like all of them aren't the same as in, the franchise and all of them are the same. All of them are have different owners.
Not really different ownership, different operations.
Or operations, yeah.
So when you call them on it, they have to follow suit.
They would follow.
The name says
whatever,
yeah. The other has to do that as well.
Yeah.
I want to add one more thing too about what's known? Dollarama. Right. So I used to go there and no problem with Dollarama. AA on the receipt, everything. But now, when the number, it needs a 9-digit number.
Yeah.
So I was gonna rip them, but you know what? I just didn't have the time. Whatever that was stuff going on. So I went back again and I asked the manager and I said, "What's going on with your system? I remember before I used to come here, no problem." She goes, "You know what? I know what you're saying because I did this with another more yesterday in my neighborhood, and I'm more bites." And she said, "I figured it out, right? The 9-digit you have to put
3 zeros or ones.
141.
Yeah.
222 141.
Okay.
But what they're doing is the system or the whatever the corporation, they're switching it on them and not telling them.
Yeah.
So then when you go now, they don't know what, you have to figure it out.
Right.
So they're always trying to do some kind of trickery by teaching the system on them, and then they have to figure it out, and then, but there's always a way to figure it out. but
Yeah.
based on-
There's always a way to get out of it.
That's the real scandal right now.
Yes, sir.
I just, sorry, I'd just like to bring it back to where you were speaking earlier on the landmass being one. Would you look at the landmass being one at that point in time, to where it is fragmented now as symbolic of us coming from a whole place and being fragmented? Would you look at what's going on in the world now as how things are since it's been divided?
Yeah.
Would you look at that as being a symbol, us going from whole to being broken into parts?
Yes.
So we're seeing things only in a fragmented form.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Just wanted to kind of
Yeah. Which again goes back to the same thing with Noble Drew Ali's teachings of us having the mindset of them back there. So that even though we can see it's separated, under the water it's still connected. So it's really still Pangea still.
Under the water. It's like you're on a property. And all of a sudden a river pop up and start running right through. Both sides of the river. You can water come through here. Doesn't change anything, just water flow through it now. Same one line, just a river come through, watching it.
Let's try to process everything in.
Yeah, for sure.
See your own yard with the river lunch. Tectonic plates, right? With the water, the civilizations that belong to us, our ancestors, like Lemuria, Easter Island, Hawaii, that's still underwater, but it's still our family, right?
Again, my brain translates what I'm hearing from a spiritual aspect to a physical one. In terms of what you had said, the landmass underneath is still whole. It appears different on the surface. My brain calculates that in the spiritual terms as our spirituality has been
suppressed
down. So what we're looking at is a physical manifestation of something that appears to be conscious, but actually
which is not it, which is really not it.
Just kind of just to understand, like I'm understanding what you're saying, but my brain has a way of doing what it does because of where I'm at mentally.
Right. No doubt.
There's like a Greek perspective. The two oldest words I think on the books were as well, Moors and Ethiopians, right? And I remember Sabir saying it as well. So before, when they used to see the Atlantic Ocean, they called it the Sea of Atlas. That's what the Greeks called it, but the name before was the Ethiopian Ocean. They actually Ethiopia. So this is, you have Ethiopia, which was the continent before the here. So I'm like, the ocean is also Ethiopia, so that means it should be in Ethiopia and the West as well. Right? Kind of looking at it.
And then you could also tie that with all the expeditions that ancients took when they're talking about Phoenicians traveling and Carthaginians traveling and people taking gifts to whoever, and they got this long trail of whatever. They're not going up in the water with all that stuff there. There's no way. When they say Queen of Sheba went wherever King Solomon took something to somebody or whatever like that, and they traveled for so long. There's no way they were only traveling on that side for that long. And there's no way that they were passing water with all that stuff.
Especially with the old ones.
Right? Yeah.
They're huge.
You know?
So that means the land doesn't separate us.
Right. And a lot of what's that lady's name again? This European lady. What's the European lady's name that was doing the I know somebody in the chat knows. The lady that was doing, she was on Oprah and she was talking about the maps aren't real and all that.
Yeah.
Elliot? Jane Elliott, I think her name is. Jane Elliott. I think that's her name. You research her, European lady. And she's dropping it on Europeans. Like, no, you guys are really the racists and stuff like that. It's not the same one, yeah. You know, like breaking it down to the level of, well, if this European lady figured this thing out about, you know, maps are wrong, history's wrong, whatever like that. She's telling all these people this, and they're still not getting it. Then it goes back to that same thing what you're saying. Our spiritual stuff is so low that not even the basic things for us to be rose up right away, we can't even get. Which is again why, you know, Noble Jawali was doing what he's doing, saying that, you know, off the top, we're not Negro black colored. So people of that mindset would gravitate to this. It might be now, it might be a little later. But the people who know that, for whatever reason, they know that they're not black people. And they're not accepting that as who it is that they are or whatever. Right? The ones who are those things or push those things, or Nation of Islam and all these other people, keep following people black and all that, when they come from the teachings that know that that's not a reality for our people as identity. You know, that actually puts them in slavery, talking to them like that. Brother North.
Don't even know. We know when I talk to people, I said, what's the continent of America? What is the continent? Describe it, like, what is it? Yeah, they know well, North, South, Central, Atlantic Island, Caribbean Island. Oh, that's America? Yeah. Where are you from? Jamaica. So who are you? Jamaican or American? You're lost. So you agree that on the continent, how come you want to be somebody else? How come? So they like a spiritual is still low. You get to that part, say, yeah, I'm on the continent, but I'm not American.
Well, I think the main thing is that people like to go where everybody else goes. Everybody wants to go with.
That's the bottom line. That's the single way. So that's what getting out of it. Yeah. So they're already into that.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that.
No. At least they say, yeah, we're the continent. They agree to that. Just like most of them, yeah, that's same name. Thanks. You have same name. They agree to that. How about try another? Let's find another name.
Yeah.
Untry that one because this is not all. This is for slavery. Let's try another name. Oh no. Or not.
Well, that's what I'm going to address. Like, it will make sense to them.
Yeah.
Right? And they will agree.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do that.
We're not making no sense.
Yeah.
And that's because they rather go with the majority of the people that are wrong. They want to be, okay, I want to look like people staring at me. I look like, no, the odd person out. Right? I want to be in the box like everybody else and be like the majority and be kept in slavery. Right? And when realistically, why would you want this thing? If your mind is telling you that, well, that concept sounds kind of messed up, maybe I should try something else because nothing else is working. Marches isn't working. Rioting isn't working. Protest isn't working. Recording, the boy that's killing us is not working. You have to find recording.
Still not working.
We still get up.
It's like I always talk about mom. She always, you know, when I tell her about what I'm at, and I was at work and parts delivered for me, and I put it on speaker and I say, Mom, you're gonna hear the guy that delivered the parts right. You hear what he's saying? No tax. I said, Mom, you see, and I'm gonna bring home this receipt to show you 2 months. You know what she said to me? Then why your brother didn't want to Yeah, why don't you try it? Tell me. You're just looking at me like a weird one.
Yep. Any more questions? Very good.
Oh, yeah, one question.
Yeah, yeah, you could bring those up.
One of the questions I was asked by some more was, so the question had been, if one was looking to have a place where we could register their sort of proclamation and sort of have it, you know, sort of out there as public record. The question was asked, where would the comparable department to the county clerk's office be here? The question was saying that MoorishNation.publicrecords.com would be one, let's say,
public records
forum,
forum.
records repository.
Yeah.
What would other organizations or administrative bodies be the one would do that, even though I was trying to explain to them more that anything that you're doing within the court, we still
That's what I'm doing with it.
so really, it's not even about having them acknowledge anything from that perspective. But let's see let's say at least within this sort of evolution where we're sort of still sort of doing it that way, what would some other places be? What would some other places be that we could that we would at least in good faith register sort of our proclamations and our affidavits in a sort of public records form?
So what the pattern has been for Moors is that you would have your proclamation papers prepared and you would send them out yourself to whoever you think needs to know about you making this proclamation. Some of the issues that Moors have ran into with regard to putting it on some type of public whatever, if your proclamation is 6 pages and you put it in the newspaper, they might charge you per letter to put it in there, or charge you per page, or charge you whatever they want to charge you because it's quote unquote their newspaper, right? If you look at going to some county, when you look at Toronto, we have the city, which is the municipality, but then above that, there's supposed to be a county. So if we go into the far out areas, they still have these, right? But putting it there in this day and time doesn't make this public. It's just specific to that county, because the county jurisdiction is that small right now because of the city takeover. So what the municipalities done is the municipalities bought out majority of these counties. So you see, Toronto was a county, and now it's a city.
So it was sure that it became corporate.
Right, it became corporate with the quote unquote amalgamation. Right, so when they said GTA, that was incorporating the so-called cities or the boroughs. Huh? So they incorporate the boroughs, make GTA, and then with GTA being municipal, now the real law is police instead of sheriff. But then you can go to a place called the office of. You can go to a place called the office of the sheriff. But when you go to the office of the sheriff, a municipal police is in there, not a sheriff. Because of the whole concept of the cities taking over the county powers. But then they're not going by county powers. They're going to go by municipal statutes, codes, acts, ordinance, or whatever like that. And they're not even going to be talking about constitutions and rights and all that.
Because over across the border, they have sheriffs over there.
Right.
But they are going with the Constitution.
Right.
But over here, they say Constitution, but it's not. It's Constitution Act.
Right.
They're acting. That's where we don't have the counties, we don't have the sheriffs.
So we would go, so for example, there's Moors who have dealt with Ontario Provincial Police. Now, in dealing with Ontario Provincial Police, they get a different reaction than they get dealing with the municipal people. Because the provincial people are supposed to be on a higher standard is what the implication is, that they're on a higher standard, but it's not really that they're on a higher standard. It's just that they have more morals than these people. Like both of these are corporate. Somebody's not higher than one in the sense of law, like when you say there's a queen and a jester, and you know that there's a difference between these two. These two, even if we say federal up here, you're still talking about have the same powers as a municipal. The only powers that they have is what the so-called what the voters give them. Once the voters give them the power, then they can say, okay, well, we don't want to deal with counties anymore. We don't want to deal with sheriffs anymore. We'll just put somebody in a municipal uniform in a sheriff's office and then call it office of the sheriff so people can think that it's a sheriff's office. But it's not really a sheriff's office. It's just an office of that. Right? If this was really the sheriff's office, it would be sheriff's office, not office of the sheriff. Right?
Province?
So yeah, province.
Province, the district into which a country has been divided, as the province of Canterbury in England, the province of Languedoc in France, had a tendency or colony, right? As the province of New Brunswick. And figuratively, meaning not really figuratively, power or authority, as it is the province of the court to judge of the law, that of the jury to decide on the facts.
Yeah. So it's saying figuratively, it has those types of power.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really.
It's a colony of some place.
Right?
But once it says colony, correct. Once it says colony,
And when it says colony,
you know colony is European taking over somebody's stuff.
colonies, Europeans, occupation. And that's the law dictionary letting you know that a province is a colony. So being that we know that we're the Aboriginal indigenous people, then we shouldn't be with anything that's provincial because that's colonial activity. Not that we're against it or whatever, but we have a certain position that they have to respect. No different than go to the store, go wherever, and they're saying PST, provincial tax or whatever, can be applied. That does not do with us. No, nor does GST, nor does HST, nor does any other tax that we want to try to imply because we've been here before your colonies. So because we've been here before your colony, you can't put your colonial stuff on us. But the problem is that majority of the people, going back to the thing with the proclamation, majority of the people have taken the position of not being who they are. Majority of the people, like what Nora's saying, they know that this is a slave name. But then they got problems with people being racist against them because of slavery. They have issues because of whatever, because of slavery. But the reality is, brothers, take it easy. Once the people started accepting the fact that these are cities and provinces are really some type of jurisdiction of a country that was developed, everything went haywire.
I want to add to what the question was, how do you proclaim? So for me, the first thing I did before I even sent out any paperwork, I proclaimed on my social media. I changed my Facebook from the straw to my appellation. That's a form of proclaiming. Public, because that's public. Social media is a public thing. So I did Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I changed all that to my appellation. That's a form of proclaiming your free national name, saying that I'm no longer the brand now, because everybody's going to see that's your friend or whoever, right? I remember they say Facebook is an FBI, whatever agency connection, whatever. So if they do watch, they're gonna see too, right? So also another way to proclaim is whatever jurisdiction you're in the city of Toronto, so-called Corporation of Toronto, send it to the mayor. If you're in the so-called Corporation of Mississauga, send it to the mayor, right? And on a vaster level, you can send it to the Governor General. Governor General, one that deals directly to the crown, the Queen.
Governor General, Attorney General.
Well, they're kind of the same.
Prime Minister, whoever's on the list.
Right. You can send it to whoever that you feel like you need to know. There are people that think, oh, you have to go to a certain specific place. No, anybody that you know that you might have conflict with later on because you know you're going to be changing your stance and they might want to challenge you, you send it to them. I mean, your work, your school, whatever.
And remember that when you're talking about notice, they don't have a limit on when they put you on notice. So if let's say you live in an apartment and they're making a notice tomorrow, no water. Every floor is gonna get a paper or whatever like that. It's gonna be put in a place where you can't miss it or whatever. And they just gave you notice. Like it's the exact same thing. You can't complain. You can't say that you were told that we're going to be shutting the water off tomorrow, or you know they're digging up the street down there, putting in Metrolinks. They're going to put up their notices. They're going to get their big billboards or whatever like that. Anybody can see. Nighttime, daytime, doesn't matter. And on it somewhere is going to say notice on it, so that they're letting people know what it is that they're doing. So that way nobody can't come to them later and say, hey, you did whatever. So that should be the same thing with us. If we realize, hold on a second, we're not Negro, black, color, or whatever. I've been parading around with this name that's not my name, and I claim my name, then I should be able to just put them on notice. Who am I dealing with? Okay, I'm dealing with these people. Put all these people on notice that this is the name change. Some of them are going to deal with you. Some of them are going to give you a hassle because they know that once they change that name, it's over for them. Because you're starting to take responsibility for your own affairs, which is what they don't want our people doing. Because as soon as our people start being responsible, then we're the gods again, which they don't want. Because as soon as they're not needed, like when they're not needed, they also leave here. They're not going to be not needed and stay here.
Oh, that's what the inauguration's going to happen, right?
I also want to add something else too, just as a personal experience. I remember when I first came to the movement, and I was doing the slavery, and they fired me, and then after they didn't give me my last paycheck. So I was just kind of getting into the movement. I don't think I even did anything. I had no proclamation or nothing. I didn't really I just come to class. So just come to class. So I did. I filed a case against my work with the labor board. So that took like 8 months. So within the time, I was still in Moorish Science. I actually did I went to court my first time, and I stood on my square, and I proclaimed a national. That's also a way of proclaiming your nationality, and proclamation as well is in the courts, and you say who you are. Probably that's all I did. I don't think I even said no paperwork or anything. That's all I did. So now, 8 months later now, when the labor board finally called, and the labor people finally called to say they're going to start investigating my case, the lady called me, she said, are you Straw? And I said, yeah. She said, are you also Osiris? And I was so shocked, and I'm thinking, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I should have been investigating and asking more questions, and how the hell do you know that? Blah, 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 blah. I was so shocked that she asked me my free affirmation is. I just took it as that. When I just realized that these people, what they do is they collect data. That's what they do. Yeah. Right? And anytime that you put your affirmations down on your receipt or anything that you do for affirmation, they're keeping that up. Don't think that they don't. Don't think that because they get people throw the garbage can be an answer. They are keeping that up. That's what they do. Right? And I prove that by 90% of no people that they're asking me about my affirmation. So anything you do, I mean, unless you're contracted in the straw, where you don't do the straw under all rights reserved, then that's fine. But anything else other than that, make sure you state your appellation or you write it down. And you, whatever the case is that you want to.
It's like the fish store up there. Western Road, Western Road, and then it's somewhere there. Yeah, I don't mind. My tax things, and they phone the revenue phone and talk to those people and ask them about our people that's coming here to do that. And they told them, yeah, you have one guy come here all the time. You know. So what I did, I just said, okay, you photocopy my card, keep it on your file. So you could tell them call me too. So like she was a little bit, you know, not knowing much, but she realized I'm not backing down.
Right.
So I'm giving you my own picture ID. You keep it on your file. So whenever they come out here, you tell them to come.
Right.
Yes, I'm the one.
Yeah. Yeah. And also to remember that you're not you putting them on notice is not to get something from them. Like you're not putting them on notice so that you can get a response. You're just putting them on notice as a courtesy, so they know that this is how I'm gonna be. This is how I'm gonna be exercising. Whether they want to accept it or not will be determined when you start being who your ancient foremothers and forefathers were. Like we have situations where Moors don't even have any papers or whatever like that. They just say whatever it is and they get whatever it is that they're requesting.
Good example is the Kofu. You can probably have, and then go with him, and he doesn't have a card.
Yeah, yeah.
He's getting effective mention just because he's speaking.
Right.
He's speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
Right? And to where me now, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop using my card too. You know I have it. I'm gonna exercise that. That's true. That what do you call it? That authority. That a card is a formality.
Yeah.
Paperwork are formalities. But because we are under rule or under colonization over that means, and we have to do some stuff, I guess, formality-wise, just to have a smoother ride.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we have to, but it's just to make our transition or our navigation easier.
Yeah.
Because we have stuff to do in life. We can't always be battling sports.
Which is what they want. They want you to be battling them all the time because also too they're vampires as well. So they want energy. They don't really want your whatever you claim you got. They really want your energy going towards something that benefits them opposed to benefiting ourselves.
Because they'd rather see you stressed out and you go home, you think about your wife and children, right? And stuff like that. Right? They'd rather see the dysfunction of our family. They'd rather see the separation of the family.
Right.
Right? So that's more of a progress to them than actually giving the child. They don't care about that.
And again, the whole concept of the proclamation and us knowing that we're Moors and knowing about our birthrights stops that dysfunction. Because they realize that, oh, these guys are actually being who they are. They actually have turbans on. They actually have fezzes on. They're not acting like niggers all the time. There's something different. Oh, you could actually have a conversation with these ones on the phone and there's an issue going on. Why not? You don't know everybody and all that type of stuff. It's just a conversation about the issue. And most times, like Noble Drew Ali taught us, intelligent tone will solve all your issues with anybody. Intelligent tone alone.
We're so intelligent just to get something. Even though it seems like to her, she's taking too long and she's like,
yeah, she's on edge.
yeah, she's on edge.
She's on edge.
Easy going.
Yeah. And like, you know, the main thing is not expecting something, because we're still in this mindset of there has to be a reaction from the European for us to be able to say, all right, yeah, it's official now. Like, we don't need anything from them. It's our action that's gonna make it be whatever it is. Not because oh yeah, we got a banner from the Europeans that say they recognize us, now everybody's happy. You know what I mean? No, forget all that. We also recognizing ourselves first. You know what I mean? And then somebody else recognizes.
I also want to add too, when sending out anything, like if you send out a writ or you send out a proclamation, you send out anything, yeah, we all want to respond to just to let us know that they acknowledge stuff. But once they go send your mail back, that means that they received it and they have it. As if they didn't want it, they will just send it right back to you. And then you'd have a return mail. But once you know that it never came back to you, that means they have it. And they did some kind of data work on it, trust
me. Yeah, they just play games.
Exactly. That's what they do. They play games. But if you don't lose the game, then hey, you're having a checkmate all day.
Yeah. One of the other things we were talking about. Oh, go ahead, sis. No, go ahead.
I have a question. It's a little outside the box from.
What's all right? Whatever questions you got, bring them or anybody else too.
Is there any classes that's provided around meditation and things like that, in terms of identifying what type of gifts that we may have?
Yeah, but you just said
no. Yeah.
It's just not like you're out.
Yeah, you read that was my answer. That was my answer. So yeah. So my answer was going to be anything that you see is lacking, it's probably for you to build.
That's right.
Because we're going from the aspect of, everybody is their own divine entity that has their own input into this manifesting, like with we're saying 2008 to now, the amount of different divine entities that came through to make this be where it's at right now. It was only because of individuals finding what it is within themselves and then expressing that or putting that forward for others to, interact with it. Which because of where it's manifesting from. We're talking about our cipher is specific minded individuals. Like there's individuals who they've came in here and they've been here since the start. There's individuals that came in here, they left half the class because they couldn't take the energies. Just because that's where they were at, right? But the ones that are here, the ones that say that they're Moors and that they, honor their foremothers and forefathers, that's a different group of beings. So your ideas or the things that you put forth are going to be accepted more among people who are on your same mindset, opposed to individuals who are not on your mindset, or individuals who, they're in this to get something out, opposed to better themselves is why you're part of this. And then once you better yourself, then you realize that everything else around you is going to be better because you're better.
Remember some time ago, I was talking about this lady back home about the goods in the kid.
I can't remember. Bring it again. Bring it again.
This is like an upgrade or an update to what that was back then. Like I have this friend back home. When I talk to her, she keep using the word kid.
Yeah. And
I tell her, that's supposed to talk. Oh, everybody calls it. I said, no. And she was visiting her grandmother or her sister, her aunt. And she, I think she was 87 somewhere, older lady. So I said, put her on the phone. I want to ask you something about this kid talk. Where does this come from? Because I'm here and there. So now when she came on the phone, I asked her, did they used to call children kids back in your time? She said no. They never used to call them. And then she told me the first time she heard someone calling baby's kid was a so-called Canadian come down there. And me, this neighbor next door, asked her, where is, and she told her that she said, Pauline, that's Pauline children. But she said, Pauline children, and she said, oh, she asked the little girl, how many kids your mother had? And the little girl said, my mother had one mother goat and 2 kids. So that's 80-some-year-old telling me the first time you hear people calling children kids. Okay. No, bottom line is my friend, which is her aunt, telling me that experience of her first time hearing them calling children kids. Yeah. Now, I think it was Tuesday of last week or Wednesday I spoke to her. You know what she's telling me now? She has a granddaughter, maybe 2 years old. She made a mistake and called her kid. She said, I'm not a kid, don't call me a kid. I said, see, I've been telling you from when. So your aunt told you, now is the baby telling you, when you gonna get it? Her granddaughter now, she's calling a kid. And she said, no, don't call me a kid, I'm not a kid. She's not a kid, so you know that. Yeah.
What do you call it?
Right? Children, our little ones, our child, our baby, our offspring, yeah.
Offspring, heirs.
Kids is for gold.
It's like a spell. No? If you call the children, everybody call them kids. You wonder why they act crazy in their kindness.
But that was that it wasn't in the, if you go back in history, whether it was European or us, we didn't refer to our offspring as kids. No, because it was meant for the goal. It's like right now, when you're saying that, it's the same way it's like calling a child a cat or a bull, right? So let's just say over time, you start saying, hey,
the cat. Yeah.
And then the sticks.
See the story.
That's what's happening.
That's crazy. When you think about it like that. Yeah. Think about all those signs or whatever, those kids department and all that stuff, the cabs department, people going in there. Like, yeah, that's what we are.
Well, that's the science of the spelling, the science of the UK. They presented with stuff and then we manifested it by taking it out. And then when certain things happen with herself, you wonder why. Because people have to realize that we invoke it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like a prayer. If you say a prayer and you're praying, you want something, you put it out there so you get it back. But you keep on saying the same thing, like just like a black. Keep on saying you're black, you're invoking a spell of negativity on yourself. Because I always challenge somebody to name me one positive word that contains the black. Up to now, I haven't found one. The most thing they can come with is black and white. No. Blackamoor, or you're just saying, you say black, something where it means business or something like that.
So like credit? Yeah. Like,
something like that. But other than that, I can name 10 stuff that's black has negative connotated meanings, like blackness, black eye, black sheep, black eyes. I can keep on going. But people still don't get it. Like, why using something that has nothing positive? You put a spell on yourself. And we're putting stuff as a nation, we put a spell on ourselves. And in actuality, the word black really means pale. So we're calling ourselves them and they are called, and they're being us as a sovereign people. We traded places.
You got any more questions back there, Omar? And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to.
I never heard of Moorish general how they perform. Now I have my mom's funeral to go to the thing that I need to know. It's not gonna be like they think it's gonna happen when they get there.
You know, you got the chapter 3 back there?
What was it for?
Ministry of Death.
Yeah.
You could do that. You could do that chapter in the Quran. What you wanna to do is remember that the sheeple don't take death too well. The sheeple don't take death well. The sheep. They don't deal with death how they should deal with death. So you're walking into a lot of different types of energies. You know what I mean? So you wanna try to let them get it out, because we know where they're at. You know, wait till the reception to go talk about some stuff or whatever like that. Wait till people's after the day or whatever. You know what I mean? But one thing for sure is Ministry of Death. That chapter.
You know that one? Huh?
Yeah, in the Quran.
Death and burial of Elizabeth, Demon Blessing, the Ministry of Death. Chapter 3.
What chapter is that?
Chapter 3. So I would, if you get a chance to talk.
It's not if I get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Make my chance.
Yeah, but you know, but that's what I'm saying, that people's energies are funny, right? So you don't want to be the instigator of people's vibes being disgruntled or whatever at this quote unquote event called funeral. You know what I mean? Because as Moors, we know better. Like, we know where these people are at in their mindset. So we start talking certain things with them being in the mindset, as well as dealing with a death and all that type of stuff. They're not going to be hearing anything you're saying anyways. So keep it like simple.
I don't remember the scripture, but I could find it.
As simple as possible.
When one's dead, you should rejoice.
Right.
Love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So see all those little simple ones like that?
Yeah.
Like that. That's where you want to hit them at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have to go into anything long and drawn out about. Just hit them with the things, especially like you're saying, things in their own stuff to show how they should be, you know.
And those are the things me and my mom talk about. That's why she get it so much.
Right.
Even when, like I said before, with the Jesus color thing, when I discussed it with her, she telling me that the color of Jesus doesn't matter. I said, Mom, you send me for a black friend when I bring a shine man from you. You probably stop me over here and ask me if I don't know color. But your black color should matter, but Jesus color don't matter. She always says, son, that's why I like shop. I never look at that. What you like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use their own little thing.
Yeah. You know. Omar, yeah.
Question was, I guess this is in conjunction with tying ourselves to the records again. Wondering about if you got me on the process of having a notarized clock of destiny in the Library of Congress, and I explained to him that object was no longer in its rightful place, and obviously that was done probably to make sure that we couldn't reference that from a reference point.
Yeah.
And I guess the notarization part being, or the authentication of it.
Yeah. So with regard to the clock of destiny, so just quick update people. After Noble Juali died, there were many different Moors that took what Noble Juali brought and either stagnated it or pushed it further. So one of the individuals that pushed it further was this Moor by the name of Charles Mosley Bey. And what he did was he took everything that Noble Juali brought, added it to his organization, and then the things that Noble Juali, Moorish Science Temple brought for the people, his organization was doing that, fulfilling those duties. Because with Noble Juali being assassinated by people on the inside, there was a lot of, separation in the Moorish movement, right? So this individual set up a process of proclaiming their nationality. You get paperwork, you get a nationality card and all that stuff. But the difference was that instead of you going to the Moorish institution to get it, you would go to the Library of Congress to get it, because he filed it in the Library of Congress so that it could stand on the constitutional authority that we were really supposed to be exercising as Moors. We weren't supposed to be exercising this as this is religion, or come in here and pray and sing hymns or whatever. We're supposed to be going to the mayor, getting certain things done for Moors wherever we live. Going to the prime minister, getting certain things to Moors wherever we live. Going to whoever it is that was, quote unquote, the heads of government, so that wherever we are, being Moors, we have constitutional backing, which would be the top. Well, we have divine backing, we have universal protection, then we have the natural protection, because everybody's in tune with nature or whatever like that. And then we have the constitutional protection, or then we have the common law protection, then we have the constitutional protection, and with that alone, we should be able to live freely. Right? We're supposed to be comfortable because we have constitutional protection. Right? Meaning that no one could violate your rights if they say they took an oath to that. And once you call them on the fact that they have an oath to that, then that's what they got to go by now. Whatever they say is the law or whatever is irrelevant. They need to go by the stuff that they took their oath to. So he had these things filed in the Library of Congress. Individuals in that movement went into the Library of Congress and either took stuff out as far as the paperwork and the nationality card or whatever that you're supposed to get, or they moved it to somewhere else in there where only they know where it's at. So now you have to go through them to get the clock of destiny stuff. Opposed to you just going to the Library of Congress and it's just sitting there, and they already know that they're obligated to give it to you as soon as you come ask for it. So, and the reason we found that out was because when I went to ask for it, because same thing, you're studying, you found more, yeah, go to come, just ask for CMA stuff at the Library of Congress. That's it, just call them and ask them. Call them up and ask them. Call them up and ask them, and they're saying that, well, all they can certify is the copyright of those things, but not the actual documents. So you can call them now and they'll send you a copyright, a Library of Congress sealed copyright of the certificates and the stuff that CMA filed, but not the actual stuff.
Speaking of natural first.
Yeah.
That's who we are. Chapters.
Called champs.
Yeah.
Put my appellation there, the RLB, and underneath it, they put natural first. Right there, natural first.
That's like a type on your receipt.
Yeah, on the receipt. Receipt.
Yeah. That's good.
They put my name, my title.
Yeah.
And she didn't put it in all capital either.
Right.
And then she put natural person. So for our people to look at my receipt, and I'm a natural person, so who are you? You're official. Very simple.
No, what I was asking is, was that a system printout or was it really like?
Our system for
Yeah.
when it's on my receipt.
Yeah, could have put it in the system or whatever.
There, it's on the receipt.
Well, I was wondering whether it's like that. Why she even put it? Because I've never seen her receipt have that on.
Yeah, who
They know.
knows? Who knows, bro? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, the application and maybe the tax number, but not saying that.
Yeah.
2 words.
But that's the whole thing with all the different places doing different stuff. That, you know, that particular one, that's probably how they do it. They're gonna take the card, put it on the screen, and type out everything. Other ones, they don't even need the card. They just put the stuff in the computer and that's it.
Trust me, they know. That's like, I remember I showed you the Walmart receipt that had the circle set on it. What?
Yeah, I never done.
Walmart receipt. And the system code is 7, and it's in the brackets. The brackets, no, the bracket.
Yeah.
That's their system access. So when they type it in, they press number 7, and the number 7 is it's their access to our loan tax.
They changed it now.
Like they always
They changed it. It's now 12. Because I had it on the 7, I think I said last back.
Yeah.
Now it's 12.
So within our lawyer,
But I built a report with the one I learned, so.
Yeah. Once you go in with them for a little bit.
Just say the guy that comes here. Ron is the one that people start. Oh, yeah?
I even called them, and then when they called me back, they're talking about whether it's not Canada issue or whatever. So I'm saying, well, it's a Walmart American company. Just very delicious.
Yeah. You know, because they have their Canada brand. You know, their Canada.
It's all dependent on the person too. I've gone to Canadian Tire. As you all know, I don't have another card carrier anymore, right? And I've gotten it taxes them multiple times. I think it was like 2 weeks back. Different manager was there, the cashier. So they started giving me problems. The manager came and, oh, we need to see a card. And so I showed them the receipt. I come here all the time. And other branches, they give it to me. So what's the
issue? Yeah.
Right? And as always, I always tell them, it's formality. The card is just formality. I'm here. The card means nothing. I am here. And she's like, well, you can't. They don't. You want to take that with?
They don't identify with us being native or indigenous by our look.
Yeah. No. They do. Because
they don't because customarily,
my take is different because
Why your take? It's what they take.
No.
When you look at us,
Hear me out.
they always want one second.
I've gotten it put it down many times when I'm telling them no, I'm more. They put me down as leader, and I'm the one telling them no, I don't want to because that's what I'm saying.
What they're thinking of naked is not somebody look like you. That's what you're trying to say.
I get it, but you're not getting my standpoint.
what he's trying to say is he's instructing them how to do it right.
Yeah, but they put me down as leader.
No.
Right? And they're always quick to put me down as leader. The moment I go and say I'm tax exempt, oh, okay, no problem. And then I go, are you putting me down as leader? And they go, yeah, isn't that what you are? So you get the mindset that I'm saying, right?
Yeah, well, I was with you, and then you instruct them. This is what I am, and this is what you have to put. And that's when they did sort of, so no, you don't have that. So the closest thing we have to that is diplomats.
Yeah.
4 diplomats, so they use that.
No.
Is it more unlimited is not the same, right? Well, it's like saying the same thing. Like, well, not more, but let's say American. American means the native people of the land. So it's like saying native and native. Native just means the first people on the land. Americans. I mean,
they're similar. Yeah.
It's like because American, or say Moorish American means the copper colored people or the dark skinned people of the land. Native means there's no such thing as a pure native. That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as that. That doesn't go together. Right? So if you're native, that means you're dark skinned of some level.
But this one that you see that they call native, you notice they don't call it, they say native Canadian. That's where the oxymoron comes about, because they got 2 people. Canada is only 150 years, but native is supposed to be thousands of years, so they've been trying to be 2. Native Canadian, how that works? Yeah. You can't be, because Canada is only 150 years. And native is supposed to be thousands of years.
Because the population,
We've been here from the inception of the world. Well, they tell you that black people have been here from when? I get using the wrong term, but that's the confirmation.
Yes, sir. Clarify a little bit what I was trying to explain, but I think there was a little discrepancy. I wasn't talking about the name as far as them calling me name. I'm just using that because that's the common term, common identity. Right? So whether they get indigenous or whatever, when we go in there saying that, first off the hand, we're gonna have a little roadblock because the customary thoughts are native, aboriginal, indigenous,
Indian, whatever. Yeah.
not us. It's that what we were talking. So that person could go in there and say, yeah, I'm native status, I don't have to give them no number, no identification, but because of what their impression of their mind was, it is what it is. They're gonna give them that exempt, right? You were gonna have to speak and say, no, well, I'm not native, I'm indigenous, or I'm aboriginal, or I'm native, or I'm whatever, I'm Moorish American, right? Yeah. And then, like you said, you're gonna have to instruct them, and then they're gonna put in whatever category suit. But we still are gonna have to go in there and present something, or even verbalize something, because the world doesn't identify with us as being indigenous like that. Yeah. Especially
I wouldn't say the world, and I would want to say our people, our own people.
Give them that example from yesterday. No, he's saying like
As a Caucasian, it's no problem.
all around the world. And we're dealing with our immediate things, so that's our world. That's our immediate existence. Our world, people around the world, interpret it on one second, but we know exactly what it's saying.
And a few around the world don't know. I was talking to a youngster, a girl, maybe a few weeks ago, and she was doing her own research because the topic me and her was on this minority and try to prove to her, and she get it, the dictionary, what it means. She said she think of that long time ago because she do research, and it's like counting how many black people is worth. That's what she was doing.
Yeah.
And she find out we are more than that.
Right.
So how can you call us
Minority, yeah.
So she did not hear this minority, but she didn't know what it didn't mean small amount.
Yeah.
No, she didn't know that. And that's where she was upset because she said, I checked the whole world and we are more than everybody. I want to be minority. That's what I explained to her now. For sure, the definition doesn't mean small amount. It means babies, infant, incompetent, and ignorance. That's what it means.
Question around the whole name of this that we're discussing. I know that around identification and things like that in this hemisphere, it's usually done in capitalized letters, which identifies you as a cooperation. Now, I find it interesting of what you were just saying about the receipt that you have that identifies you as a person, and your name is done in actual common letters.
Yeah, so like they probably took that off his ID.
Sometimes proper enough. Sometimes when they do it in all capitals, and then you just have to tell them that you don't want it.
Because I understand that for it to, your IDs are basically all capitalized letters. And I understand that that's registered with the government as an actual
Business
corporation. So, and that is being traded, as you said.
Yeah.
That's why there is an expiration date. So that's how long you can operate under that business. And then you have to, even if it expires, and you're standing there, the official everything shows the same person. They say that you're no longer in business, and we don't even recognize you. But that's very interesting what I'm hearing in regards to the receipt.
That receipt would say expired date, but here's the date.
Yeah.
She didn't put no date, but here's no date.
Yeah.
And expired.
Because they haven't figured out what they're gonna do yet.
Right.
But you have to realize, in school, everybody knows. In school, they teach us how to spell your name. First grade, they teach how to spell your name all the way to.
Not just that off the right.
Yeah.
I mean, like proper.
Proper grammar, yeah.
Proper grammar.
Yeah.
Sorry. But as soon as we say that, we start getting this public why are they not following their own, or not their own?
Teachings or, yeah. stuff that they've taught.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you not following it? That's because if you look at it here, in corporation you look, 99% of them is on contracts.
I think maybe the problem too, with them acknowledging, the Moors, has to do, perhaps, I don't know, I'm speculating, that may have to do with the fact that a lot of the people that are in these positions are also been put to sleep in order for them to even think and feel the way that they do.
Right.
So this information is not even given to them because they don't want them to have it.
Right. So, but also,
You're right. You know what? You saw that
It's not even given this information.
That's what we're talking about, the brainwashing. Because you, prior to everyone coming to the fore of this information, you actually did think that, oh, businesses spell their business names in all caps, but why is my ID in all caps too? Nobody ever thought about that. Right? Because it's the brainwashing.
I've been doing that for a lot of years.
Just to add to what you were saying, that's why when you go to the school, you always have to call your money to stop doing it. They don't even know.
because those are the dumb ones. So it's just so it's like anything else, anything that Moors are dealing with. We always go to the highest authority that we can deal with. We're not going to waste our time dealing with the common.
Higher authority comes right away. Yeah, like yesterday.
Right.
When I was with Brother Cyrus, we were in Marshall, right? So I bought stuff for myself, and he's now he wants it, by the way. Yeah. So when we were there now, the Asiatic sister that was running it, so she's young in her 20s. She was like, okay, yeah. Because I go, have you done tax exam? She's like, no. And she's smart, right? So I go, well, you're gonna learn today. She's smart. Okay, no problem. So she rung up everything. I go, did you take the tax out? Brother Sarah says, well, they don't do it here. I'm like, well, they're gonna do it here, right? So I told her, and then she calls, I guess, her supervisor, who was one of our people, unconscious. So she comes and says, I need to see an ID. And I go, you don't need to see an ID. You're seeing it right now, here. Right? So she stands there and goes, well, I'm going to, so I just stop talking and I look at her, right? Feeling all her energy. And then she's looking at me. So then she turns to Brother Cyrus and goes, so you guys don't have an ID? Brother Cyrus says, we do, but that's formality. We don't need it. So we go, well, is the manager around? He started to say, well, if the manager is in Europe, right away when she comes, she's going to do it. Oddly enough, one of the European sisters that was there, she was young as well, she came, oh yeah, just do it. Right? But she's not the manager.
Yeah.
She goes, just do it. I just did it a couple minutes ago, someone came here. So I go, oh, there's a more here too. I go, how long did that person come and did it? She's like, about half an hour or something. Oh, okay. So they're done. So then she says, yeah, starts instructing them how to do it. But the supervisor, who is, she's saying, no, let the manager know. Like, no problem. Manager comes, yeah, just diplomat. Just do it under diplomat. Boom, done. So after the whole ordeal now, she, who is denying us, wants to know how she can be. That's right. So we started to give him a little lecture there. And there was a Hindustani brother there. He was interested. He came in. Yeah. I had problems seeing the story. You know who tell them to let it go? Right down there. It was in this time that telling the guy around the country, yes, he's from He said, yeah, he is.
Yeah. And even with regard to what Brother Cook was saying about the individual wanting to know after the whole thing goes through, now they want to know what's up. Like, yo, you actually, stuff actually worked or whatever like that. Okay, well, I need to get down with this, right? This is where it comes in with what you guys are dealing with your friend in Brampton. What did he say? right? That there's individuals that are opportunists in this.
Yeah.
That they have their fangs out waiting for people who are new to this, people who haven't really studied completely, but you know, they might have heard something, they might have been to one of those or seen something online or whatever like that, and then they get the thing with the, oh my gosh, everything's in all capital letters, and they're going through all their mail, oh my gosh, this is in all capital letters, oh my gosh, you got, and then they get into this panic thing, and then they got to find somebody to get them through this process. As soon as it gets there, then these people come up that have this process that they're going to tell you about sovereign, but they're telling you to go file some papers with some people that are corporations in order to be free, or go get some, you know, or pay some type of crazy amount for 2 papers that we think is really what is going to free us. But really what's going to free us is our mindset changing. Really what's going to free us is our mind being in the place that things can manifest what we think. Opposed to thinking and not getting what we want, how about thinking and getting what we want? Omar.
These are friends of Baptist? Yeah, they're almost a victim of.
You see all the facts, I got facts. But I also
You should tell us you're not saying. It's gonna hurt. So you guys were able to get out of that, or not fall prey to this activity, right?
Everybody here, you put us, doing like, for example,
Well, if you don't pay,
yeah, that's what I'm asking, because I don't know.
no,
Okay, people, like for example, once you buy a car or a house, can you do that? You cannot pay the house?
yes, you're right.
But it's up to your activity as well.
Yeah. But all this information is not, the tax thing is not just exclusive to Moors. It's on their CRA website. In the archives, they hide it, but under the archive, it tells you that you're not obliged to pay tax. And in red on the banner on their webpage, it tells you this is for archive and knowledge base is recording it right. And it's not about to be taken out. But you have to hunt to see that. So it's not just to kind of get your mind in the right direction. It's not something that we're just, it's a pseudo thing to us or we're pushing. That only more is a human right. Yeah.
No, people inside, like we were saying, when we went to the world, just don't know what, right? So you do a quick long process, like
Or sometimes you gotta do it for the next person that comes.
It kind of sucks because we're not doing what we're doing for us.
that's just for us.
You know what I mean? Like, we've been doing it, some of us been doing it for 10 years. And the level, the place where we're at, even with going into those stores, or like when who was talking, they said they dealt with them more the day before. Like, oh, we just dealt with them more the day before. That's the process. So like, they're familiarizing themselves. So we gotta go out and keep doing the work to make them know who they are. So then our great grandchildren can walk in the store, okay, that's a more right there. Exactly. They don't pay tax.
Nice. So if I'm cutting the tax, you come and you follow. If it's a little crooked, you're in the street.
I might say it's something, but yeah, we want to reap some of those benefits. We've been through a lot. We want to get rewarded sometime for what we've been through or what hard work we put in or whatnot. And we might not see what we visualize or what we know this thing is about or what is the level or capacity that it is. We might not get to see that greatness, but we're a part of it. So what we're doing is very important. Like if we didn't do what we did for the past 10 years, all of us wouldn't even be here right now. Like if Brent Sheep never, whatever the ancestors never touched him and he never decided to go to Chicago and build with Moors and get the charter and come back and make it expand, and then us reaching out and him, that's my friend, that's my cousin, Oh, the grand should stand up there. No, right there. You stand up right there. My mom and his dad are brother and sister. So through that, he brought it to me. Ancestors, I could have denied it. He said, what are you talking about, bro? Get out of here. I'm not the bar. I deal with certain concepts of it. But you know, everything happens for a reason. Hundreds and hundreds of people should be here right now. We should have a big dirty cathedral. And you know, like where we could fit at least 1,000 people. Easily 1,000 people have passed through here in 10 years. Right? Some of us are still here. You know, like a couple of months ago, we met a brother. I don't know how to get back, but it's just like you. And I said, yo, I'm gonna see you again, brother? He's like, yeah, definitely. I haven't seen him again. Right? So it's gonna take time, and then you just have to be willing to put all yourself, knowing that you're doing it for the greater good.
I grew up with 20 years because today I didn't go to work. That's why I was able to live. So anytime I don't go to work, I go.
He also has a Tuesday night class.
Yeah, can we do it online? You can see the archives. Take everything, right? Pre-record.
So each one teach one. So now with all the stories that each individual person here has been, when you go there, like when we went, they're like, oh, don't worry, we just had someone here. So we didn't have to take long.
Yeah, it's a process. Even dealing with like the policy enforcement, like 10 years ago, nothing, not even a word. Like now, oh, you're one of those guys, or you're a free man of land. Like they know about, they have basic knowledge, misdirected knowledge, whatever it is. They have an idea of what's going on. And the more we keep doing what we're doing,
the word's just gonna spread.
It just fall, everything will just fall into line. It'd be wicked if all our people wake up today and realize how more than to start moving in sync like that, in unison, then it would happen like that.
We all had encounters with the police. So I've had many encounters. And now if they don't even stop me anymore. But the last time they stopped me, they knew. And they're telling me, why don't you just become distraught so we can all be on our way? That's not it. That is nothing. Yeah.
You can stop me for anything.
Because I'm being me, which is I don't get control of
They stop.
So they said, and my partner has changed. So they stopped me. That being said, my car's color is different from what they have on the system. So they stopped me, but I already knew why they're stopping. This has nothing to do with the color of the car. Right? So I just hung up my foot and waited. And when I dealt with them, they already everything. Because I put them on notice, OBP, 12 division, all of that, to let them know. It's me, I'm going to be doing this going forward. So when you see me or my conveyance in the car, leave me alone. Right? But they wanted to test me, and at the end of it all, they started, oh, you know, you could be arrested for not giving us your license. Oh, you want to kidnap? And hold me to ransom. They reversed their wording. I told them, you shouldn't be talking to this. Call the supervisor.
Yep.
So when the supervisor came, oh, you're very intelligent man. You're very smart. But why don't you just become Richard so we can all be on our way? I go, Richard is the instrument. You have power over that instrument. Citate that instrument, and we can all be on our way. Yes. Right? And they kept going on and going, no, I am who I am. I said, so can you come to the OPP office? I go, sure. Let me know the time and date, and I will come along with my nation. And he smiled, he went, came with notices, paper, yellow, non-ticket stuff to show up to go.
Probably don't want to.
Yeah, you know how with that,
Like it's just an appearance.
Yeah,
They don't find on it, no set fine.
no fine, nothing. Just show up for whatever. We went and it was a joke. Yeah, and because they already know. So there's no charges. All they just said is, yeah,
Notice
failed to show
fear.
insurance. He failed to show driver's license. That's the reason. So I go there and it was just right.
It depends on your day. Like, being a shooter, if you get in those type of comments, they're not supposed to shake you. They're supposed to give you the stuff.
And then go, yeah.
But depending on that officer and how he feels that day and how, like this, like a year ago, right? Okay, I got an encounter with a police officer or a policy enforcer, highwayman, and I was in my conveyance with all their proper tags or whatever, pulled up behind the car, and I knew already they were gonna pull me over. Pulled me over, gave me my national travel card. Then he came back asking me for like address, the family of the other temple. So I'm like, then I presented my nationality card to him and said, yo, this is the mailing address here. He's like, oh, okay. 25 minutes, 3 exits, and okay, fine. Went to his car, came back with suits for my three national names, for me. Gave me the suits and said, all right, sir, travel safe. And I said, all right, you have a good day, and then let me go. A couple months after that, got pulled over by the next set, presented those same suits to them and said, yo, your colleague, you let me go off the scene, so just give me the suits and I'll be on my way. No, your license suspended, do this and that, They raised the window, bunch of them pulled me off the conveyance and they kidnapped me, right? That was his personal thing that he wanted to. Because when it came time to go to deal with the court now, like on the second, third appearance, it's thrown out.
It's thrown out.
You know what I mean? Like, or not even thrown out. There was I had some herbs with me, so after they searched whatever they found some herbs, this black bag right here. Packed up like this too. Went in there, found the herbs. I steal everything, whatever. Time to report now. They had me at Old City Hall. Then they said because there's traffic and criminal, we're gonna traverse you. So then they sent me to right there, right? Even right there. First time I went there, the judge was mad that I'm not accepting the shot, kicks me out of the courtroom. David, the CEO, the court officer comes out. And I was asking for names, like names and prosecutor on prosecutor's name, on his name. He didn't want to give it, so okay, fine. Went to the clerk's desk. He tell me who the judge and the prosecutor, the courtroom, so and so today, please. Cool. Gave it to me. I had another piece of paper. And while the court officer comes and says, the judge said you could come in after recess if you're going to admit and say that you're distraught. I go, I'm going to do the same thing when I go in there. So, whatever. They try to touch me and I say, well, don't touch me now. Like when I'm in there, don't grab me, don't touch me. Try to surround me, grab me, whatever. They let me go and walk out. Took their recess, came back, still proclaimed my nationality, said who I was. It's like, oh, well then, put out a bench warrant for the straw, because the straw's not here. You just want to say the straw, but the prosecutor's trying to stop the judge. Say, no, well, but I guess they've been through it, right? So they know. So it's like, no, he could actually, because enough times you could be, like, even if I've done it for, like, in a corporate staff, like in a straw staff, like, yeah, I'm here to, person that work today, or I'm just here to deal with the people, either turn it for a day, or whatever.
Yeah, and they do it no problem, yeah.
So all of a sudden now, I can't be here standing up as an agent for this person, please, get out of here. So the prosecutor's trying to say, no, you could, but she's like, no, like, adamant, because she's so mad that I'm wearing a fez, and I'm standing up there, I'm not. So they put out a bench warrant for the thing. Crown prosecutors, like, this would have been done a long time ago if they just dealt with the charges instead of trying to.
Well, bother with you, yeah.
Because as soon as now, like, everything happens, prosecutors like, well, the plea charges are being thrown out. Judge is going crazy, like. I didn't know that word. And recess, I went to look at it. I'm like, what's that thing with a fire? I'm like, you privilege. We're not talking shit. Are you trying to think I'm talking shit? Okay, let's go. So the charges dropped. Right now, it's just the traffic charges, right? no license, no insurance, no registration on plate. So my thing is, I don't even go to these appearances no more, but because it was criminal, I know they'll try something. So I went to deal with that, knowing it's going to get thrown out, so now it's just like traffic charges. I haven't been back. They set a date, that date, and that was it. I left the program and I never went back. It's fraud, they know. I'm so certain of myself that I don't go. You do what works for you. But I don't acknowledge them, because every time I went in there, they do the same thing. They try to sweep it under the rug, or they try to convict the straw still. There's no anything, so I'm just going there pretending like it's real kangaroo court. We're just doing a little play for a second, and then we're gone. And they always make threats of, you don't appear, bench warrant. You don't appear, you're being arrested. We're coming with a bench warrant. I haven't went in like 3 or 4 years to a case, except for that one where that was last year or the year before. And they always tickets, suits pile up. That's you guys thing.
Yep.
That's your thing. So you guys can make it pile up on the straw. I have nothing to do with me. Because I told you guys.
You got some more?
Just going to expound on Sue's journey. That we also admonish people. The reason why Sue has gotten to that level is he has been kidnapped. He has gone and spent time kidnapped behind in that system. So I always remind people, and we have that happen with Supreme too, understand that if you got something the next day that's super important, you may want to make certain choices, because taking a ticket or two to go battle it out with the real guy that you can battle out is probably better than melting off to a little punk on the street who has the ability
to kidnap you or whatever.
I'm always saying that has been what has created the energy he now travels with. Because they know that they can't scare him anymore. And they know that they're really compounding. They know that they're really compounding their human rights violations by the fact that, we bluffed him and he fell for it. This man took the bluff, took the bait, went down, got back up again.
Once they can't bluff you, it's harder.
For the past 10 years since I've been moving for this energy, and before that being in a corporate state, like since 08 to about maybe 2009, I just didn't even give my application. I was just telling them I'm a mortgage, I don't even give them my name. I'm like, I don't have to give you my name. I'm not obligated to them. Am I arrested? No, I'm not required to. I'll be standing with a man on the block who don't know this info, and they're doing the opposite of me, and they're getting searched and have to pull an ID, give the name, I'm standing right beside them looking at them. That and not you see what's going on right now, right? Right.
I'm like, I know, but it was just nice, kind if you could give us your name.
So now they see me and they try to antagonize me in the area. Right? They're riding on their bikes, they see me chilling outside, running through whatever I'm doing, someone's backyard, they go by, and they try to spread out the corporate name, right? All the time. Let's look at it. And they stare at it. Right? And but if they do actually come and talk like that, I go, hey, you know who I am, right? You know what my name is, right? And then they have to switch up the top, and then they start using the appellation. In the station, they're trying to use the corporate name. I go, I'm not responding to that. They have to start using the appellation.
And that's the spell that he's throwing out there, right? That spell is he's using his energy, and now that whole energy's changed.
So within the last 10 years, I've been pulled over probably, and like I've had way more encounters with these guys than I've had all my life. When I was doing certain criminal activity, when I was in my corporate state and whatnot. And maybe once, that time where they broke the window or whatever, that was maybe the only time they've ever searched me. Any other times they take it whatever, I could have whatever in there if I wanted to. And there's nothing. But when I was in a corporate state, no time. I was the whip, search on the ground, arrested. If I give them some name that I gave him my corporate middle name for my dad's last name, which is a real name. I was charged and convicted of obstructing justice. The number of times I gave him my appellation, the name that I made up out of my head, out of myself, and they've accepted. and they move on or they go. And they have to be because it's your status, it's the position I'm in now. I'm in my proper person. I've done years in prison before. Since I've been doing this, it's like, okay, a couple of days, maybe a day, or a week, or the time, okay, what is it, I did, what is it, 30 days or whatever. But that was nothing because I went in there and Grand Sheet mailed me a whole bunch of stuff, Quran, bullshit information, and all I did is teach everybody on the range, everything. Next, you don't matter, come down there in the class. Right? So,
yeah. And that's what they say too. That's one of the things. One of the master teachers said that when you get into those venues, your duty is to help enlighten the older brother.
They don't want that. They'll be quick to pull you back. Oh, yeah, you're going to teach you guys what to do what you're doing? I'm not tired. They have to stay brain dead.
I want to add to that. I have a word. I have a word for like a year now. And like you said, I refuse to go back to the courts after I did do that whole charade stuff. I'm like, I'm way from that. Students. I'd rather be the word and than be with that stuff. And the reason why I say that because when I read on the traffic violation, and I had the word, right? And they said basically, I'll stand on my square and they came in the shirt, they came and they grabbed me and they got at me in the courtroom, walking in the room, and they tied me up. I'm like, screw you guys, I'll stand on my square, whatever you guys do. They only have a word, going down. So they brought me down into the cell, the court cell, so I'm there like an hour. Next thing you know, they come in, they're like, you know what? We're letting you out because Vaughn doesn't want to come for you because Vaughn was original charge. And you know, Brampton Traffic Court, the police station is just one block away. Right? Nobody's coming in. And then, you know what? It's almost 14, you gotta get out of here, so we gotta go. So they let me out of the warrant, I'm like, what the hell? So now that I've been on the warrant and they pulled me over, and I give an affirmation. Right? Well, actually, I stopped giving my name, so I don't give them anything. I'm like, whatever you do, I'm not giving you nothing. And they're called me twice. But I realized that I want to find out if they're going to arrest me if I give them something. As I know they know the affirmation and the straw.
Just waiting for you to volunteer something and then assume the position,
so,
right?
So that's how they do it. One time they stopped me now and gave the affirmation just because I want to see. And they do nothing. I know they know the application straw is connected because, like I said before, they reported the accident. And I was even getting nothing yet. I just exercising court work time. So it's up to you. If you volunteer to be the straw, you're going to administrate you as a straw. And I've been on warrant for over a year now, and they pulled me over. I haven't given the straw. I should have given the straw. Yes, away.
So there's a bounty out there.
There's straw. Well, I'm going to
it's elemental capacity because I get stuff in the mail too and stuff. So sometimes you wanna I know there's a pro kind of process that I should be doing too, but my vibe tells me and then I watch the patterns, right? I see how they operate. So then I go, okay, what? You gotta go through certain things first before you know. Like, it's a lot of trial and error.
A lot of trial and error.
A lot of it is by experience.
You have to, within yourself and your heart, you have to be firm with yourself. You can't doubt. Because you can fool them. But then the energy, you're dealing with spirit sisters, so like that is prevalent and that's going to prevail. So the spirits that are working are going to know that, okay, this person's not even sure what they're doing. We're going to get them. And they're going to still send those entities. And they're going to use it in a way that it's going to penetrate and be able to get to your source. So you got to be sure. Even when you doubt sometimes, reaffirm yourself. Yeah. But we're all going to doubt. We're all going to sometimes feel.
How do you reaffirm yourself?
Well, it's a thought. So like sometimes if I get a thing, like a couple times I opened up a thing and I seen like they send whatever all the suits to collections now. So like and now we're gone past collections, like a lawyer is dealing with now, right? So this what they're dealing with. And and it's like there was one thing that said it's like 17 grand. It's how much I owe, you know? It's the strong man knows. So like any natural person see that, you might, but I don't know. Yeah, you might feel the timid, you might, so that thought, but then it's natural, right? It's a fight or flight feeling, whatever. So as soon as you get that feeling of doubt, you just reaffirm it with a feeling of surety, like you know what, you shake it up, you know what, it's not real, don't worry about that.
Yeah. What name is it in?
Right, and then it's affirmations, right? And then you change your energy, because the word, power, and sound is one thing. They're not separate.
For example, the last day when you're waiting for a trial day. Usually, this is not even traffic. This is obstructing what they call justice. They say I obstructing. They charge me for obstructing. No, trial day. And before, when I was in the strap, I don't know what I do now. If I just traffic tickets, I get the points logged. I make sure I go to court early, so I wait till him come. If he don't come, I could tell him the name of him and he whatever, and they might put it off. Now, I'm supposed to be going for a trial for obstructing justice. Court start at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I'm putting my comforter in my bed. My phone rings, 9:37. Who's calling me? Are you coming, sir? Are you coming? Sit up. I said, what time is it? She said, the court starts at 9 and the judge is looking for you. Now it's 9:37. Oh yeah, I'm coming. I didn't get there until 12. And in the end, they just say dismiss. So the thing is that when you start to have that mind concept, like you want to kidnap me, go ahead. I don't care. Not like fear and no. Just start eliminating fear. That's one thing. I learned to stop eliminating. Because like I said, I used to go wait for my eye. In case it didn't show up, I could tell them, you know what, hell, the eye, I'm coming for these later. Now, I'm not even going. They're calling me to come.
That's to affirm.
That's the
How
way
you affirm. Brother science, two, knowledge. Now, once you know, and even if you haven't exercised, which grounds you even more in the knowledge. If you're around, as they say, your peers, like that will also ground you. You are sure, I am sure. Yeah. Cyrus is sure, Yasun is sure, because we've all been through. Right? And
then just in contrast too, how long you've been sure, 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 yourself, Kabena, Omar, like what type of numbers we're dealing with as far as time in this. Time being in the Moorish movement, I mean. Okay, about 15. Okay. Yeah. So about 3 years. Yeah. That's right. From the
day, I won't even say sure in that sense.
Yeah, but yeah.
I would say the last kidnapping.
Yeah.
Right? It clicked in on the first kidnapping, but it wasn't a full switch. The switch was halfway.
Yeah.
Right? Because I caught on and said, I allowed them to kidnap me. Because I told them, out of anger and frustration, let's go. Okay, sir, put your hands behind your back.
Yeah.
So when I did the time, clicked. And then the last time was when they showed the spirit told me that they are in my house and I shouldn't go. But I've always been that way, where I want to test it. Right? Even though I always know what they're told is right, I want to affirm. So I know.
Yeah.
So I went, sure enough, the bad boys in blue were there. And again, I made my errors ever since then. The switch has been broken. It's
no turning off.
Yeah, now You're what? You're gonna what? What are you saying, bro? What is that? You need to kidnap me. Because I know what you're saying. And Brother Jesus says, when you know, they know and they back up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And even now, when they follow me, I ride around, I say, they add character to my guards. I don't have a front plate. Oh, you know that's against the law. No, it's against the act. We're not acting. And I tell the highway boys that when they come. Under highway section 7C. What is that act? We're not in the movie yet. Literally, that's how I speak to them. Right? And they automatically go, what law? We're talking law, not acts. Law. So once you know and you're grounded and firm with it, they know. And after a point, they won't even, because you're exuding that energy anyway. You won't bother you. Like the other time I was riding with Brother Osiris and Booty, and me, I don't care anymore. Literally, I don't care. They were in front of me. They noticed the highwaymen trailing me. Right? So they're worried, oh man, we're gonna have to exercise our rights or whatever. This boy, I had no idea. So when they finally decided to leave, they laid me on the cell. I picked up like, yo, bro, you notice the highwaymen trailed you for like 3 traffic?
This one is sweet. I think it was Thursday when they go to the restaurant before. But the highwayman, the pop and sitting in the car. And the highwayman passed by him. You know what he's asking? No dirt bike today? You know why? Oh, he have a dirt bike. Have no light, no indicator, no nothing. And he's from here to Bampton all over the place. And they know him now. This is how he's on the road, but not supposed to be on the road. Yeah. And he saw him in the company and said, so where's your dirt bike today? What they tell us, he knows that this man will go. Yeah. No plate, no lights, no nothing. You know, and it's your right. Yeah. You know. What kind of fire? Where's your dirt bike today? I was surprised that you're asking your dirt bike today. Like with all our encounters and what we're doing. For example, if this was a so-called black boy, they got him on that bike. They took him on that bike long time. Oh, he's black. Yeah, he's black. He's missing. They asked him, where's your bike today? No bike today?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it feels like even I've been just watching for the past 10 years how they move and how they deal with us now. It's like they know, but like certain things they want to like sweep under the rug or do it before it gets to a certain point. It's like they know that there's some remedy that we can use, but we're not really aware of it yet. And they don't, and before it gets to that point, they're just like, you know what, okay, well, all right, we'll just throw it out or do this or just do that. You know, before we like get to a point where they're held totally liable and they can't get out of it at all. Right? So that's what I've noticed. Like they're just like they're ready to, because like they probably went like, oh, these guys have a gold mine here. Yeah. And they don't even know, like we didn't even know about this. Oh my God, they're waking up. Okay, well, gotta start doing certain things. Let's make a universal identification card for everybody now. You see, that's your ID card. And okay, let's start like giving them a little more lenience. Like, okay, pull them over. Okay, we might let you go like these. You see, like what you're saying, all the stuff that we were saying 10 years ago, there's nothing. You're getting the suits, you're getting whatever. Now it's like, why these guys are figuring out more of them are coming out of the woodworks. Okay, we gotta take certain precaution out to protect our interests. Yeah, because they have those part of gold. They don't want to let it go, and we could start suing them to ours. And they don't want to keep it. It's all the stuff you're studying. So they're starting to figure it out. That's why that now is like studying. Right, exactly. Because now, because even when you get pulled or something, I thought like last time I got pulled over from some policy enforcement, and I told them, I go, you guys are liable, and they're like, give me no. They're like, a lot of stuff, because first he came with a Filipino one and an actual Moor, unaware Moor, right? 2 unaware Moor, right? And when he got gave him the national ID card, like, I don't recognize this, throws it on the hood of this car, goes, trying to get on the phone with whoever, writing up, figuring out how to write up the suits, whatnot, then the supervisor comes. Next thing you know, when he comes back to talk to me, now the Filipino one's like, well, yeah, I realize that you guys have a certain way of doing things and you think a certain way, and we have a certain way we have to operate. So I don't, you have to find some common ground because I don't feel that. Now he changed his talk, right? Because like, oh shit, this guy's feeling like a positive in trouble. I'm like, yeah. I go to you, they keep you guys off, hang you guys off the dry. Like, you guys come do this and abuse people's rights, and then they're not going to protect you guys, and you guys are held liable. As we know, so that's why we need to know, we need to figure out like what you're doing, and it's like we're going to have to do what we're doing, and I'm not going to tell you to stop doing what I'm not stopping. So I understand that exactly. That's my point. So you guys do what you're going to do. I'm going to be doing what I'm doing, and that's fine. I'm not mad at you guys. It's your job. What are you doing? But don't try to. Yeah. You know, like the same
try
thing.
to violate.
Yeah.
The only we supervisors and that same thing to them, where I understand what you're doing. You have to remember, a lot of people do not understand or know how you're thinking. And it will take time, so you have to be patient. I've been patient. That's why I asked them to call you.
And you're like, you can go up to them and talk to them, like, to try to engage or let them know, like, I'm this. And one time, because of that, it was in a situation that I was for somebody else, but I just got caught up in the situation, and I'm on the ground now, and I'm 2 feet, and I'm hearing something saying, hey, you remember me? And it's because I went up to him outside one day and spoke there for like half hour, telling him, like, no, you gotta do that. We're just picking each other's brain. When he sees me, boom, get to the station, they're dealing with me better because of that time. And now he knows that. Okay, well, you can't let you go because you're not using your stuff. I go, you want me to commit perjury? Okay, threaten her now. So you got to let me go. So they want me to go to bail in the morning. I'm like, come on, boy, this is that. Plus, and because of that, it's like, okay, well, just say your Sean on the recognizance paper, the bail paper, whatever, when you really give your dispensation. So pick my battle. I want to stay there all night and go in the morning and think. That's right. And I still put Yasun on it. Like when I'm in the stop time just to see what he's gonna say, right? And then all right, reserve it. Yeah. Like this asshole. Like you're not even looking at it. You know what I mean? They just want to hear.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, like okay, I'm gonna do this. And then you go do what you need to do.
It's a mention staff sergeant. This is how you see. When there was recently, there was the sergeant over there. He said, you know what, my friend, I understand. Because my parents are either Irish or Scottish. He said, my parents are Irish, and the British forced that name on them, and I have that name on it today. So I understand where you're coming from. The staff sergeant of Rutherford and Credit Stone. He said, I understand where you're coming from. Because his own parents take that name, the British forced it. And he's still carrying it today. So you understand, I might get back that name, I don't want it.
Any other questions, comments, testimonials? Was there anyone on your little list there, Omar? Anything at all?
No.
All right.
He has a question. What you know they have said the fence, and fence means what?
What's your background? Yeah. What's this mean there? You seen it there before? You never seen it before? What about Igbo chief?
Igbo, they have their culture.
Yeah.
There's a culture. Tattoo plan.
Right. Right.
But if you see someone that put it in their heart, it said it's not a big fashion, but it's really tattoo my heart and the red car.
The red one?
Yeah, red one.
Right, like what those guys have back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. Same idea.
Yo, you see that? You see in Wakanda?
Wakanda? Yeah.
That's not in the movie, bro. That's not. Where you found that? That's not part of the movie.
So that's the accent.
Back, bro, and I followed in every little off that side. My mind goes to I'm like, bring me through the fun of that night. I watched this in the movie. Black Panther. It's called Wakanda now. That's not Black Panther, it's called Wakanda. It's not there, bro. Where did you find that scene?
That scene's in there though?
The
Them walking, yeah.
Where you're talking,
Yeah,
I looked at the picture, exactly where like him and her in it.
Walking, yeah.
There's no, unless it's like so fast for the eye that you cannot possibly see it.
I got that from Cosmo L.
That's he got a movie, and then they
or
went
maybe
and got the one
edit,
before.
maybe
and then they say, no, not for this person. And then they edited it out and then put out a movie because that was not in there.
More importantly, he may have gotten a version that was being played somewhere else.
Before.
No, being played in another country.
Maybe another country or a different bootleg.
Everybody go watch when Black Panther is walking back in the town with his goddess and with the common folk. Not fine.
So not even in there. That's crazy. Yeah, it must be something. Probably something.
Right after you showed it, I'm like, I went the day after. I'm like, and I forgot, since then I forgot to talk to you about it.
For real.
You better keep that thing, because.
Yeah, so that might be a long lost one.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people have that in.
Oh man, that's a video game that was playing. And he reached to the level where these people having some problem don't know where to go. They go to one of the European cities and so you better ask them more. Not mobile, video game.
Yeah.
Ask them more.
Better ask them more.
That's the same of the prophet. If no one knows, ask them more.
Yes.
Something like that. Or if the more doesn't know, that nobody.
Any other comments, questions? Any announcements back there, Omar?
Montreal, October 14th or the 27th. Women's Appreciation Alumni. We're having on the 23rd, 22nd. And wasn't there Black?
22nd of what?
September. And then isn't there the Black Hair Show on the 23rd or something?
Yeah, hair show is September.
For natural hair shows?
Natural hair show, 23rd. 23rd of September.
Right.
We usually have a table there, vending at that. That's going to be at Japanese Cultural Center, Winford Drive, Domino's Eglinton area. So we'll probably be closed that day and just be over at that.
You're not speaking to the lecture.
No, I don't think there's anything this year.
What about you're saying better
So Brother Alphonse is more culture, I guess more culture music night. I guess there's some problems with the venue where they promised the venue to put down a down payment, didn't pay the whole amount, and then supposedly someone else swooped in and took the date. So then there was another situation, something else happened with another date, and that didn't work either. So we just decided, since we're at the gym, you guys were here for the last week, we just had an offspring. So they're in Montreal. I think we've been to Montreal twice, once as from the temporary point of view, and then first time with just a few listeners, but this is part of our work too, to get up into the other locations, in my mind, right? So we set up trying to get down to Montreal twice a year, Ottawa twice a year. And, you know, Hamilton and wherever else.
Wherever else we can get to.
Take our show on the road. So we're looking to go down to Montreal and have an event there. There's some wild, in the churches in there, there's a lot of wild sort of imagery. I really see all of our stuff too. There's a lot of stuff in there that has a lot to do with the astrology, astronomy in there that really sort of reinforces what we all know about where our science is. In fact, if they have that science, they ain't even talking about that science. They have it all in stained glasses. Did you do that when we went to
the one tree, yeah.
Remember all the stuff, all the constellations and everything. They're honoring all that stuff and teaching you about dogma while they're honoring the real stuff.
Yeah, the 12 disciples, all of them were in like brown wood carvings or whatever.
And all of the women in there showing you a lot of the constellations were have feminine energy.
Yeah, they had the crucifixion. They had the crucifixion in stone with Yahshua with locks and all that.
Yeah. Locks that had
in a church.
It's called the observatory, which is its own thing. You know, they had all of these stained glass windows, which I believe, and I'll put some of the pictures. It's a whole bunch of them. What I believe is the stained glass, remember, that's sort of the frequencies. Light has certain frequencies. So they have the stained glass with these frequencies, and I believe that what they're doing is jacking that energy in the fact that they were standing like chakra. So what they did was they had 12 reliefs, and in each one they had imagery of people doing certain tasks. And to me, what that spoke to was that they're saying that people, like, for example, I was looking at Libra and had them like doing something, and I said, that said to me, which was they were trying to indicate to you what things you who would be born in this constellation would be good at. That's what it was sort of very limited, and so there wasn't a lot of time to study it.
So they decided they could study the building and get more than what they're doing from this, then they change it from the future club.
No, I think that they built that as a place, a holy place for people to go there. Not like, you know, that's like a holy, like, you know, when they talk about sort of landlines where there's energy. And then I think what they did was they set it up with knowing that, and I think they talk about this, how a certain light frequency gives off certain energy. And so then, but it's a total 360 building. The building's 360, right? It's totally, it's a cylinder. So it's obviously catching the light from all of those areas. So when you think of that as maybe, you know, like sort of Stonehenge or something like that, where it's actually
housing the energies.
Right, and then they had a huge organ. Remember that huge
organ? They had the organ, the
crazy. All the pipes, nuts. And that was one. And the one I want to go to is not and they said, remember this, they said that any time a Moor goes into a church, it ceases being a church and becomes a temple.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone, well, I'm sure they've all been in there wearing their fezzes anyways. Let's go make it official.
Go next door.
Well,
right next door.
Cujo, he's wanting to start shit already. You don't even want to set that. Hey, what? Let's go next. We're here under a month, mate. Let's go next door. I see fans and
say they strip down and redress.
Like a fight going on.
Yeah.
Future ain't gonna let them up that easy.
That's this Friday? Yeah, this is our Friday. Yeah. So we have our every Friday our education committee. Every other Friday we have Decipher Fridays, where we look at Moorish themed movies and then have discussions based on, you know, what these people are trying to relate in their TV shows, movies. Yeah. So right now we're watching Superstition right now. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, this show called Superstition. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They go hard. Yeah, they go hard.
Dissecting and
yeah, we're at I think we stopped at 4 or 6 or 5 or something. Yeah. Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix right now. Huh? Yeah, I think we watched 2. No, he came late. Yeah, he came and we started. Yeah. We're trying to watch 2 or 3 episodes. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the next. So the next one is this Friday. 6. We say 6 o'clock. Probably start about 7, but 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Right. So if that's it, no, it's not going to be online because we can't stream the copyright. Yeah, the copyright. Yeah. Yeah. If there was any people with questions in the chat or whatever, you could email those questions and we'll deal with that for Tuesday class. And for everybody else, give thanks for being here. And Durrell, you ready? Durrell, let's go, man.
Where's he?
You know you got a job to go on. You know you got a job to do on Sunday.
Where's he?
There you go.
Never eat straight away.
All right.
Allah of the universe.
Allah of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom.
And justice.
Allah is my protector. Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
By night.
By day.
By day.
Towards the right prophet.
Holy prophet.
Noble Ali.
Islam. Good times, bro. Islam, Morris. Peace and love. Peace and love, Morris.
What is this? Are you talking about? I usually got it
Excited? Yeah.